Good afternoon. I want to thank everyone for coming to this very important meeting of the City Council as we do the people's work. At this time, council members, if you would please stand for the invocation that will be given by Councilman Curtis Edmonds, and then please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Edmonds, if we could observe a moment of silence for the citizens in Orlando, their loved ones and friends, and all that are trying to get through this difficult time, not only there, but throughout this world. And these matters is dealing with hate and mean-spiritedness and things of that matter. So if we could have a moment of silence, and then Dr. Edmonds on your cue. Thank you.
Gracious God, our Father, we're so grateful to have had a good night's sleep last night and to be awakened this morning to see a new day. We thank you for having blessed us, whether we acknowledge it or not, but by your grace and your mercy. God, we also ask tonight that you will be with those who were suffering from trauma of a heinous crime that took place in Florida. We ask, God, that you be there to console, but yet you always remind us that death is a certainty. Be with us tonight as we deal with the city business. Be with those who have things to say and us who have things to say back in regards. Help us, Lord, know that it's not just Portsmouth for one person, but all of us who have an address that's housed in Portsmouth, all kinds of people. Help us, God, to look beyond some things so that we can come into agreement with the things that will make our city great. Bless us from far and near. Help us to be kind toward one another, to love one another, to say good things while we're still able to hear them, because we don't know what tomorrow brings. So bless us in that way today with your supernatural power. We pray in the awesome name of Jesus. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Edmonds. Members of City Council, please indicate your presence electronically.
Six members of City Council are present.
Okay. Members of City Council, you have before your consideration the minutes of a call meeting of May 24th, 2016, and a regular meeting of May 24th, 2016. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please conduct yourselves electronically. The minutes have been adopted 6-0.
Okay. Again, we want to apologize for our tardiness of the hour, but sometimes matters surface that we must address, and this was one of those nights for it. So again, we apologize, and hopefully we'll catch up during the non-agenda speakers. Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Right now we have a presentation to the Honorable Miss Randall.
Oh, very good. Yeah. We're going to ask our Vice Mayor and Miss Randall if you would please join us up front here. And we all know this gracious, phenomenal woman who has been a part of our Portsmouth family and has done yeoman's work in our schools. And where's your mic? Where's the Vice Mayor's mic? You got to tell it all. We need to hear it. Where's the mic at? All right. Oh, she's got it. Okay. Test, test. Hello. All right.
We're on now?
Yep.
All right. Mrs. Randall, my mentor, Councilwoman Randall. Back on April 28th of this year, I was very honored to accept an award on behalf of Mrs. Randall because she was ill and not able to attend. And that was the 28th Annual Woman of Distinction Awards presented by the YWCA of Southampton Roads. So there were a dozen women from all over the region doing great things for their community who were given this award, and they all paraded in these boas, so I saved the boa also because I knew she'd love it. So I want to read to you what the award says in the program, and then I'll present her with the plaque. It says, this is the government award to the Honorable Marlene Randall, retired Portsmouth City Council. As a dedicated member of her community and a native Portsmouthian, Marlene worked nearly 4 decades for the Portsmouth public school system and expanded her endeavors as a Portsmouth City Councilwoman. She served on the board of directors for numerous organizations, including the Her Shelter, where we met.
That's right.
The Portsmouth School Foundation, the YMCA of Southampton Roads, the Tidewater chapter of the American Red Cross, the Clean Community Commission, the Sister City Commission, a STOP consultant, the Girl Scout Council of Colonial Coast, and a past National Treasurer of Jack and Jill of America. Previous awards include the NAACP Community Service Award, National Life and Virginia Life PTA, NAACP Life Member Award, Portsmouth Schools Humanitarian Award, Girls Inc. Smart, Bold, Strong Woman Award, Order of the Red Triangle YMCA of Southampton Roads, National Conference Community and Justice Humanitarian Award, African American Historical Society Influential American, and National Jack and Jill of America Distinguished Service Award. Marlene received a bachelor's degree in elementary education from Virginia State University and a master's degree in early childhood education from Columbia University. Marlene currently lives in Hampton Roads with her husband Vernon. They're proud parents and devoted members of their church, New Bethel Baptist. So congratulations, Ms. Randall. And here's your
First of all, to God be the glory for this moment in time, and I'm still alive to make a joyful noise. Isn't that a beautiful feeling? And to look out at all of you and see your smiling faces, I can truly say God has blessed me in so many ways. And I don't believe He's finished using me yet. So if you need someone to make a joyful noise with, right, Elizabeth? You're it. I can make the joyful noise. And I'm here to serve you, to be of service to you, and said, thank God that all of you have had such a wonderful part in making my life be as full as it has been. And I want you to continue to pray for me that I will continue to do those things that are acceptable for my Portsmouth family. I love you dearly. And you can't.
Again, congratulations, Ms. Randall, and it is good seeing you. And it is great hearing those words of encouragement. Okay. All right, thank you, Vice Mayor. And let me, before we get started, I do want to make an announcement. Tomorrow at noon at the Flagpole High Street Landing, we're going to have a noon vigil to stand with Orlando and any of our citizens who are available and of our employees. We will be at 12 noon, is that right, Dr. Patton? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And this is important that we stand. This is something that is not going to deter people who live in a free society. We all know freedom is not free, and it sometimes strikes us in a way that normally gels us together. Unfortunately, we split whenever that grace period is over. But again, tomorrow at noon, please join us for this very special moment as we stand with Orlando. All right, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. City Council rules require a limit of up to 3 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 3 minutes, you will see a green light. 2 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 3 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your remarks at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his/her remarks. Public hearing. 16-182. Public hearing on rezoning and use permit applications. Item A. Z16-02. Uptown. Ray Moore with Circle Contracting is requesting that the regulating plan for the D2 form-based code area be changed to general urban frontage to workshop frontage for the property located at 1320 London Boulevard. The purpose of this request is to allow the existing light industrial activities at 1400 London Boulevard to expand into the existing building and grounds at 1320 London Boulevard. The comprehensive plan's generalized future land use map recommends light industrial development on the parcel. Vision principle, a robust and prospering economy, electronic roll call, and I have a speaker.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Wright, members of council. As was noted by the clerk, this is a request, and I believe it is the first request to change the regulating plan in the city's form-based code, which was adopted back in 2010. And I thought it might be worth a couple of minutes to explain a little bit of the differences between the way the form-based code works and the way more traditional zoning works, so you can get a sense for what you have before you tonight. And it does have a few differences from more traditional types of zoning. In this case, the most important thing to understand about form-based code is that the zoning is not a parcel-based zoning. Each parcel does not carry its own zoning. What is regulated is by street frontage. And so right there you'll see a portion of the city's regulating plan for the form-based code for the D2. And you'll notice it's in different colors. Each one of those colors represents a different type of frontage, which is attached to a use table and different types of uses that are permitted. And so that's quite a bit different. And one of the things that's different in a form-based code, if you have parcels that are, say, corner parcels or through parcels, double frontage parcels, you can have more than one type of regulating plan applicable to your parcel. As is noted on the map right there, the site location is a property that's located at the corner of London Boulevard and Godwin Street, and it's in between another parcel that's on 1400, which is the business operated by the applicant. This is the building in question there on Godwin. It's a vacant building. It's been vacant for a number of years, very similar to the building across the street. These were used for light industrial type of uses historically, and again, we have a number of these buildings in the form-based code area that are vacant. Aerial view give you a better sense of the location. You can see the mini storage to the right-hand side. The building has got that light blue outline around it. That's the building in question. Again, the little strip we're going to be talking about is in between that building and that little strip of Godwin that heads back between London and the cemetery. and the building on the parcel at 1400 London. And even though these are carrying London Boulevard addresses, the buildings actually front Godwin Street. And that's important from a form-based code perspective. So here's where we're looking at the current form-based code regulations. You can see where the map marks current frontage. That's the Godwin Street frontage. Again, under the form-based code, you can have different kinds of street frontages. In this case, both London Boulevard and that little piece of Godwin carry general urban frontage. They have the same frontage, which in this case does not permit the type of use he's discussing here, which is he does metal fabricating, custom fabricatic metal fabricating, and he's looking to expand his business to occupy both sides of Godwin there. What we just see at 1400 is technically, according to this, a non-conforming situation. On the other side of the street, it's non-conforming use as well. The building being vacant, lose a lot of rights. So that's the current condition. There's a change we're looking at here. You see that piece of gray that went there on Godwin? That would be workshop frontage. That is a type of regulation we see more out towards the Martin Luther King extension. We have more industrial type land uses out there. He's proposing to put this to change the regulating plan for that section of street just right there. And one other thing I want to point out for your information, another different thing about form-based code, because it's a street-based plan, we do not split the zoning down the middle of the street. The code intends for both sides to be carrying the same kind of land use. So, for example, when you change the frontage for one side of the street, you in essence are changing the frontage on the other side of the street. So you have to be cognizant of your impacts you might have on a property owner across the street from where the applicant's property might be located. So that in a nutshell is it. In this case, you've got same kind of land uses on both sides of the street. They both would be permitted by right under this workshop frontage. Planning staff and the Planning Commission both think that's an appropriate change. It allows a continued economic viable use of both of these buildings out there instead of rendering this one sort of perpetually vacant. The Planning Commission at their meeting in May voted 6-0 to recommend approval. And if you have any questions about the application of the form-based code, I'd be glad to answer those if I can.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Any questions, comments for Bob? All right, thank you. Madam Clerk.
Our speaker is Ms. Donna Sy.
Good evening. My name is Donna Sy, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. Z16-02 states that Ray Moore is requesting that the regulating plan for the D2 form-based code area to be changed from general urban frontage to workshop frontage for the property located at 1320 London Boulevard. The purpose for the request is to allow 1400 London Boulevard's light industrial activities to expand into the building and grounds at 1320 Boulevard. At the Planning Commission meeting, there was a vote to do a study for the Planning Department staff to propose text amendments to the zoning ordinance related to D2 districts. The Commission also proposed text amendments to the zoning ordinance related to conditional zoning, which includes proffers. On the application form of Mr. Moore, the proffer box signifying yes or no was not checked off. Why didn't Mr. Moore check the proffer box? Is he trying to avoid the rules? We need people who are held accountable for failure to do their job. Because land use is policed by the planning staff, the people need to know the rules and regulations of the building codes, rezoning, and land use permits. When is the Neighborhood Academy going to hold a workshop to help the people to hold the Planning Department staff accountable for their abuse of the people's property rights? Principles of Liberty 14 states that life and liberty are secure only so long as the right of property is secure. In Portsmouth, our life and liberty is not secure because we have policing of our land, except for those who are being favored, like Mr. Ray Moore and Mr. Dan Ashton. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on Z16-02. If there is anyone in the audience but did not have an opportunity to sign up, please come forward, give your name and address, and you will be given 3 minutes to speak on Z16-02.
Good evening, Mr. Youngblood.
Good evening. I'm Peter Youngblood. I'm a resident of Old Town. I'd urge you to grant this request. Mr. Moore runs a fabrication business that will be offering jobs to our young people. These are exactly the kind of jobs we need. He needs welders. He needs metal fabricators. These are the gateway jobs that our kids can graduate from high school, go to TCC, learn a skill, make some money, support their family, build a house, do the right things. And we desperately need more jobs like this. The building in question has been vacant for at least 2 years. It's going to be an eyesore unless we can get somebody in there. And I just don't see any problem with doing this, but I'm afraid that we may have had some other thoughts that miss the benefits of this proposal. So I urge you to give it a favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, very much. And well said.
My name is Cliff Page. I'm at 465 Primrose Street. Mr. Youngblood has a property around my neighborhood. My property is very close to these properties, and I know every business that's ever been in them. They serve a purpose in an urban planning sense. For one thing, they block the cemetery. Where are you going to have a residential house or something that's going to be overlooking a cemetery? Not many people want to live there. The form-based review was not passed to kill potential. It was meant to integrate existing things with the future. Now, these businesses, Mr. Youngblood has just said, have always been commercial. I've been here in this city for 30 years in this neighborhood. Portsmouth Electric was there, and Nolan was there. It had lots of different places come and go. They are industrial sites, and I agree 100% with Mr. Youngblood in this, and we've not conferred on this matter. This is new to me, but it is in my neighborhood. And I believe that we need businesses in this town, and we should promote them. There's no other real use for that except one of them turned into a methadone treatment center, and I'm glad it's gone and moved down the street. But those businesses, we need small shops in them. We need small businesses in them, and I think that we should not hold our hands for anything that will bring businesses into this city.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Seeing no additional speakers, this public hearing is closed.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please conduct yourselves electronically. This item has been approved 6-0. Item B, downtown. Request of Dan Aston of the Whitmore Company for a use permit to renovate the commercial structure at 430 Crawford Street, formerly occupied by Wells Fargo Bank, for 46 multifamily apartment units. The property contains .711 acres, and the overall density proposed would be 65 apartment units per acre. In addition, Mr. Aston is requesting a number of deviations from the development standards, including the 30-foot setback for parking, location of driveways, height of the first floor, and other items related to renovating the existing structure. The property is presently zoned downtown D1 in the T6 sub-district and is located in the mixed-use downtown land use category on the future land use plan contained in the comprehensive plan. Vision principles, sustainable neighborhoods, and enhanced quality of life, electronic roll call, and I have registered speakers.
Good evening again, Mayor Wright, members of City Council. This application is in the city's second designated type of form-based code. It is in the D1, what is a smart code, and it's designated on the map. You can see it by, I know it's kind of small and looking from this distance, but parcels you see with the letter T or the letter SD, those are the transects, and they make up the D1 district. On this map, you can see the area in purple. That is the T6. The red star on the map is identifying the corner of Crawford and London where the Wells Fargo building is located. And as I'm sure you're aware, the T6 district is the district in which the city's most intensive development for the downtown area is envisioned to occur. So just following the numbers backwards, T6, 5, 4, 3, 2, the intensity levels of development gets less as you get to these smaller numbers. Zooming in a little bit on the parcel in question, and we're just going to take a look at some of the surrounding zoning. We'll do this a little bit on the left. You see a rendering of the project as proposed. You can see on the zoning map on the right-hand side, again, south of London, east of this site, you can see the T6 designation that goes all the way from Middle Street to the waterfront. It kind of wraps around there on Water Street and picks back up and runs along Crawford back down towards the Holiday Inn site. Across the street on London, you see the HLO and the HR. That's the Old Town Historic District that's on that side. And if you look far to the left side of the map, you see a T5. That's another district in the transect, and that is actually the boundary line where the Downtown Design District actually has its design authority. During the Planning Commission meeting, there were some questions raised about the type of design review that is done for these. And again, reminder that the transects are a form-based type of code. You can see on this map here, again, the site has been located there with the red star on it. And that area inside where that dash line is, the T6 design of buildings is all regulated between the zoning code and the plan that was done for that area. Again, across London, you see where the Historic Preservation Commission has its authority in the Old Town Historic District, and the DDC area, again, where they have authority and was technically what we consider the historic downtown on the other side of Middle Street. So here's the building in question. This building is, as noted, is basically vacant. I believe at the Planning Commission meeting, the owner indicated there's one tenant in there on sort of a month-to-month basis, but the building has been vacant. Again, in the properties you're looking there, again, at the corner of London and Crawford, you can see the city's parking garage there on Middle Street, kind of behind the building, frame of reference. You may recall that when the form-based code was adopted back in 2010, this use would have been a permitted by right use. The density requirements in the T6 are between 60 and 96 units per acre, and this one's at 65, so it would have met that standard, would not have triggered a use permit under the code the way it was originally adopted. Last year, Council adopted a zoning ordinance amendment requiring use permits for multifamily dwellings, and that is what has triggered the use permit requirement for this application. And before you tonight, in addition, been noted on this application, there's a number of deviations to the design standards requested by the applicant, and just for, again, some reference to that, form-based code was designed primarily to be applied to new construction, and so a lot of times you're going to run into issues both with new construction and existing construction meeting all those design requirements. When the code was adopted, it was always recognized there was going to be for a process to deal with deviations to the design standards. You may recall another presentation we discussed the Type 2 site plan process, which used to go to the Planning Commission, and there was a Virginia State Supreme Court case, New Singular versus Sinclair, in which they concluded that the planning commissions across the state did not have enabling authority from the General Assembly to take on that type of a role. And when we briefed City Council on that, City Council asked then for those types of requests to be brought to City Council, so you get both of these types, both the use permit and you get the request for the deviations. That prior to this would have been one administrative and the other be under the authority of the Planning Commission. Finally, we have the site plan. Just want to mention a couple of things about the site that came up during the course of the Planning Commission meeting. A question about parking. Again, you have 46 units here. As you're aware, in the downtown and the D1, there is a zero parking requirement for development downtown. Over in this case, the applicant is proposing to build or at least to use the existing parking lot to create 46 parking spaces. It would be a ratio of 1 parking space per unit. There's also some provisions on the site for some outdoor space with some questions raised about having dog parks. Just want to make it clear this is not a city designated or city requested dog park. This is, I believe, the applicant indicating there's going to be space available for tenants that have dogs to take their dogs outside. This is not to be confused with a city dog park. In essence, you have a use permit application that comes, I believe, with 4 conditions, basic conditions on there. There's also requests for 7 deviations, which are detailed both in the city manager's transmittal letter and in the staff report. The Planning Commission, at their meeting in May, by a vote of 6-0, recommended approval of both the use permit and the deviations. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have regarding the applications or the requests of the applicant, if I can.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Okay. Thanks, Bob.
Our first speaker is Mr. Martin Borger.
I'm Martin Borger. I live at 4115 Colonial Avenue in Norfolk. Good evening, Council, Mayor Wright. It's nice to see you again. As you know, and for the record, this proposal requires the city to approve over 22 zoning variances in an attempt to force the proposed building onto the Wells Fargo building site. Approving this remodel asks you to eliminate 22 zoning requirements. We ask you to vote for the conditions being placed on the use permit requiring the proposal to meet a majority of the city zoning requirements. At the Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Department and Commission approved several variances, which is provided in this for the T6 zone as said. They recommended that the Planning Commission send the proposal to the Council to approve the others. Approving a handful of variances on a project of this scale is not unusual, but 22 on this project alone is inconceivable and frankly unjustifiable. Here are just a few exceptions the proposal requires the city to approve. 3 requests to eliminate the required size and location of windows. 3 requests to allow the building to extend over the property line. Eliminate the requirement to provide retail space on the bottom floor. Eliminate the requirement for trees along the sidewalk. Eliminate the requirement for a street wall to shield parking. Allow improper parking setback lines. Allow ingress and egress within 100 feet of a major intersection. And perhaps some of the worst exceptions, allow for less than 10% open space. Eliminate the requirement for 20 inches offset areas along the street facades. Eliminate 3 major elements on the facade, such as dormer windows, cupolas, pillars, columns, posts, or pilasters. Not meeting these last zoning requirements results in a stark and monotonous building that repels pedestrians rather than attract them. This violates every strategy listed in the city's master waterfront plan for Zone T6. If you have a copy of it in front of you, where it clearly recommends plazas, open spaces, high pedestrian-friendly proposals. Downtown apartments are important, but it is just as important that they be built without exceeding the maximum parameters of zoning variances. Why do we have zoning ordinances if we have to allow so many variances? And perhaps this proposal is better suited for a building that doesn't require 22 exceptions. As a professional architect with years of experience in similar projects, I can tell you that it can certainly be done, and this is all we are asking. Vote to place conditions on the use permit that require the proposal to meet the majority of the zoning requirements. Thank you, Council, Mayor Wright, for your time this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Our next speaker is Mr. David Rice.
Good evening, members of council, mayor, and madam manager. My name is Dr. David Rice. I'm the current president of the Portsmouth Historical Association. We understand that approving the use permit of the proposed remodeling of the Wells Fargo building is complicated. We also understand what we ask of you to do is not complicated. Quite simply, before the use permit is approved, we ask you to vote for conditions more appropriate materials to be placed on the permit. At least 2 values support our cause. First, these photos over to the left, which you have seen in the submitted written testimony, show the deterioration of some of the materials used in the proposal and how poorly they have held up in another property in Portsmouth built by the same developer. They show how over 10 years, these products quickly failed without proper maintenance. The developer, who no longer owns the building, states, "We sold them and no longer maintain them." Understood, but the same thing can happen to 430 Crawford, and here comes the same problems. Except this time, and what's even more incredible, is that these supposed low-maintenance materials are even being considered in this historical area. We can't imagine we would want our unique downtown to showcase a building with the material problems of this development, and this time, because this proposal is asking you to eliminate the requirement for trees in front, and there'll be nothing to shield these problems. Our second supporting point is a valid core principle from our city's own downtown waterfront strategy document, which you have. It clearly states the historic district is a highly valuable sector of Portsmouth and in need of protection and further stabilization, and that each site is to be considered for its highest and best value in the city. With that in mind, I was really encouraged to hear Mayor Wright say at a recent downtown ceremony, history helps us learn what to champion and what to avoid, and I agree completely and submit that low maintenance, inappropriate materials placed in this building are not effective in championing in our community. They don't honor the surrounding district properties, and they're not in the spirit of our waterfront strategy. The city zoning directives charge council with approving permits based on improving the visual character of the gateway and tourist corridors, encouraging development that is compatible with its neighbors, and creating an attractive and harmonious community. Along with including conditions placed on this proposal regarding limiting the number of zoning variances, we ask you to vote for placing conditions that require the proposal to include more appropriate materials.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for listening. And if you have any specific questions about materials, I will be happy to answer them for you.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Ms. Maggie Magruder.
Before Ms. Magruder come up, could I just ask you, what the issue with the materials, are you questioning the quality, the type, the specs? What is your actual concern about the materials on this project?
Okay, some of the materials more appropriate for the project are a cementitious material. We're looking for the composite windows mainly, with simulated divided lights instead of a vinyl window, which windows that are made of this composite wood and polymer materials are more substantial than a vinyl, and they have a longer life. That's one of the materials. I can go over many of the materials that are within the proposal. However, that's one of the main things that we're looking at are the windows and some of the use of the hardy plank and things like that, as you can see from the pictures, have deteriorated over the 10 years.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Ms. Magruder?
City Council members, Maggie Magruder, and I live at 111 High Street. I'm here tonight to ask council to not approve the 46 apartments in the Wells Fargo Bank building on Crawford Street. All the deviations that Mr. Aston is asking is just to make his project work. And I hope that this will make you question this project at this location and not approve this just because he is a businessman. We need something better in this location. We need something that will serve all the people and will get the people downtown to shop. We need something that will bring foot traffic to downtown, some foot traffic like an apartment store or something like that. I'm sure everyone remembers how great it was when we had the Famous and the Leggett's department store downtown. We have enough apartments and places to live downtown now. Let's have something different down there to bring the people. With all the new apartments that's being built downtown, we have the quarters at Parkview, we have Harbor Vista, Sterling Court, Kings Court, North Pier, Tower 507, the Seaboard building that's being renovated. And then we have all the places in Old Town. And then we have all the old apartments that we still have that people are living now, like all the places that are outside the Naval Hospital, the Myrtles, and then we have Admiral's Landing, Crawford Square, Number 1 Crawford. We have plenty of apartments. We do not need 46 more apartments. We do not need those apartments. We need something else downtown. Let's bring something that will bring the people downtown in the daytime. Bring something down there that will bring the people downtown. Please think about this. We need something downtown, something else. Please listen to us. Thank you for listening to me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Our next speaker is Ms. Joanne Clark.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of Council, City Manager, and City Attorney. I'm Joanne Clark, 4717 Thornwood Street. I am also opposed to this development, the use permit, for all of the things that the previous speakers mentioned, but even more what you particularly spoke about during the work session. It made a light bulb go on in my mind that when I thought of this project, I thought about businesses, jobs, food deserts. All of those things could be incorporated in a site just as we're talking about here. So there's a great vision that we all need to look at for our future, and I look to all of you to provide that vision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am, very much.
Our next speaker is Ms. Donna Sy.
Good evening. My name is Donna Sy, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. UP 1606 regarding the request of Dan Ashton for a use permit to renovate the Wells Fargo Bank at 430 Crawford Street for 46 multifamily apartment units. He is also requesting at least 6 deviations from the development standards, which the Planning Commission has waived. Mr. Ashton does not have to do 6 things that are development standards. 4 of them are: he doesn't have to have a 30-foot setback behind the regulating building line for parking. He doesn't have to have the specified height for the first floor elevation and the height requirement for each of the individual floors. He doesn't have to have the design and placement of the windows requirements to comprise a minimum of 30% of the building facade on the street level and upper stories. The requirement for a street wall along either Crawford or London streets. The Planning Commission waived all 6 conditions in its place. The Commission recommended these conditions. The development of the site must include landscape plans by planting medium-sized canopy trees on Crawford Street side and on the London Street side, and avoid visual interference with the traffic signal at Crawford and London. Plant a row of shrubs between the parking lot and Queen and London streets. So the Planning Commission allowed deviations of the infrastructure, yet made conditions for trees and shrubs. What about the 138 people who are going to live in the sardine can? Don't you think they would like to have the same measurements as the other apartments and houses around them? I can't believe that the city is going to let Mr. Ashton and the city treat people so badly. Where are the people going to get their needs met? Who is going to police all the conflict? Where are they going to park? Roger Cornett wanted to use his open space for a flea market yard sale for a recreational site, and the Planning Commission and City Council denied his request. Yet the Planning Commission has approved Mr. Ashton's request to use a building he does not own. Mr. Cornett owns his property. Mr. Ashton is asking for a use permit to pack these people into a small spot and then plant trees around the building so we won't know they are there. What kind of Planning Commission and City Council members are going to allow people to be treated like dirt? Thanks for listening.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP 16-02. If there is anyone in the audience that would like to speak but did not have an opportunity to register, please come forward and you will be given 3 minutes to speak on UP 16-06.
Bob, if you could, while this gentleman's speaking, if you or someone representing the project may want to come up and speak on the material issue, I would appreciate it. Okay. Good evening.
Good evening. Again, I'm Cliff Page, 465 Primrose Street. Let me give you a little background. I was a charter member of the Design Review Committee. I set the standards for that committee to operate so that everyone would have a fair play. After 5 years, we had the city manager, our city attorney, the Redevelopment and Housing Authority Director, the Planning and Engineering Department Head, and Economic Development Head on there. After 5 years, I questioned this thing and repeatedly I said, this is not going to be a rubber stamp, and I stood up for the little guy and made sure that everyone was getting a fair play. After 5 years, I caught the city manager directing one of his subordinates to cast a vote, and I went to the council at that time and I asked that they all be removed. And they were. And in short order, the manager was fired. Subsequent to that, I have been on every, and I resigned, by the way. Understand, I resigned. I wouldn't be a part of anything that was so illegal. And over the time, I have been on every single plan that has been put forward in this city as a participant, 2005 and others. A lot of my fingerprints are all over these buildings down here, and particularly up and down this street here, from Admiral's Landing to the building next door to this one, all over here. They were only improved because design reviewers were in there standing up for these design reviews. Over a period of time, the design review committees have been neutered, and they no longer have any power. And the design review has been turned over to form-based review, which wasn't just form-based review, which I was supporting for years. No, it was a means for the council, for the manager, for PRHA, for the Portsmouth partners, whoever was in there behind the scenes to do what they wanted to do with developers without citizens bringing issues in there. Admiral's Landing came before that committee, and the chairman said, well, I think we ought to pass this because the council and the manager are behind it. I said, I don't think so. We just beat up on some guy for 3 hours on his barber pole. We're going to give him a $14 million greasing here. And they got what you see there only because I stood up for them. Now, this matter right here is like spot zoning when you don't have design reviewers in there. Designers are there for one thing, because you all don't have the specialized knowledge. And it's been taken away from people you rely on, and it's being done behind closed doors. That is wrong.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, members of council, my name is Daniel Aston. I'm the developer on the proposed project. I office 3526 George Washington Highway, Yorktown, Virginia. Mr. Mayor, with your permission, would I be able to address your question about materials first? So the building is basically two materials on the exterior. It is a red brick. It's called Redland, made by a company called Redland Brick. It's a Georgian wood mold brick, meaning it's made in the tradition of, bricks of time past in a wooden mold to give it that texture. It's the same brick I would offer that was approved by the Downtown Design Review on the two buildings we're building today, the Kings Court and the Sterling Court. We use a white mortar to replicate the oyster shell look of the old cement. The materials above is a hardy plank material, which is a cementitious material, basically cement with some wood fibers in it. It's better than wood because it doesn't rot, warp, whatever. It's considered to be the best material out there today versus when you do a lap-sided board. The windows we're using a Marvin Integrity window on the first floor. The Marvin Integrity window is the same windows we've had approved by the Downtown Design Review on the two buildings we're building today. The windows above are by Anderson. They're called the Silver Line series. Once again, the same buildings were approved by the Downtown Design Review. So those are the primary building materials. I really don't know of a better brick. hardy plank, and there's a similar product called Certainty, the same thing, cementitious. And those are the windows that we're using. So those are the primary materials, and hopefully they'll last a long, long time.
One of the speakers mentioned about the windows and the seals and the types. Could you speak to that? Or
what they're talking about is they're talking about having basically a window that has the mullions that go through the glass. In other words, they want a condition where you have a mullion, which is the strips of wood or whatever that break up the glass. So in these buildings, we're using, you see the small panes, and the mullion is between the glass. All right, and they wanted to have the profile, but once again, we're not in an architectural district. We're in the T6 district, and once again, we use the same windows we thought that met the design review of the downtown design district. So we thought, instead of going the other way and trying to do something, we wanted to maintain the integrity of what we're already doing downtown.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Would it be appropriate for me to speak now?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay,
And thanks
thank
for
you.
Hold on. Mr. Meeks has a question.
What is the cost of the project?
About $7 million.
Do you know the value of the building the way it stands?
It's, I believe it's on the tax roll somewhere around $1.6 million or $1.7 million.
All right. Thank you.
All right. You can continue.
So once again, by introduction, my name is Daniel Aston. I'm the developer. I just have a few bullet points to go through, and I think will highlight a lot of things that have been addressed already. The site is in a T6 zoning district. The site is not in the Old Town District. People refer to the historic. It's not in the historic district. And there are virtually no architectural requirements in this district. The current state of the building is virtually empty. We're proposing readaptive use that will allow investment of approximately $7 million and create 46 new apartments. The building is owned by private persons and it's private property. We've followed all the rules of the city in this process. The existing code of the city of Portsmouth is basically new construction oriented. And so our variances, which everyone refers to, deal with the conditions we inherit from an existing building and conditions that can't be altered. We can't move the building. Parking. The property is in a 2-6 zoning district in the city of Portsmouth, which does not require any parking. That's the law. The city has built several large downtown parking garages to accommodate urban growth. We propose to have on our property one space per apartment as convenience and accommodation for the residents. In addition, the property is directly adjacent on its western boundary to a 474-car garage owned by the city. So all the residents will have access to that, and that garage today is grossly underused. It's empty half the time. Okay. Traffic. We believe traffic will be substantially reduced by the proposed use as apartment homes. Commercial use of the buildings are typically higher generators of traffic trips than residential, since an office building of this size would house substantially more users. We are eliminating one large traffic generator by removing the bank drive-through facilities and the ATMs. We've tried to honor adjacent properties. I have here a handout that shows the adjacent properties. The office building to our south is red brick and white stucco. The red line buildings are red brick with lapboard tops. The adjacent garage is red brick. The existing building is a closed-air system. This talks about the facade of the building. People seem to be concerned about that. It's a closed-air building, which is typical for an office building. All residential, whether house or apartment, wants fresh air. We're proposing removing the existing curtain wall and replacing it with a more traditional appearance that windows will allow windows and fresh air in every unit. We're using high-quality materials. We've spoken about that. We're using high-quality red brick. It's been approved by the Downtown Design Committee. We're using hardy plank. We talked about that. On windows, we're using Marvin windows and Anderson windows throughout the building. These are two of the finest window manufacturers in the United States. We view this development as very positive for the area. We're bringing new life to a vacant building. We're bringing new residents to downtown. We're using high-quality materials. We're building a residential buffer for Old Town. We're significantly reducing the number of people using the building. We're reducing traffic trip generation for the building use. And we're eliminating a traffic generator, which is the bank drive-ins. Right. We think all of that's very positive and a positive way to approach this building.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Any questions or comments from the developer while he's here? All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right.
Mayor Wright and members of council, my name is Phil Ferguson. I and my brother and two sisters own a corporation. It's a small family corporation named Mimi Inc. My mother's name was Mimi. That's what it's named for. That's what we all called her. And that's what we've got. We are a very small family corporation. We're all over 60 years old. We bought this building about 15 years ago from the Portsmouth Partnership. At that time, it was a combination of, we had governmental offices in there, as well as the bank, as well as one other tenant in there. Since that time, the city of Portsmouth has elected to remove, at that time it was the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, which was about 40% of the space. Since that time, the bank has moved out because they don't use that type of space anymore. They want smaller facilities, and so it's unrealistic to think you can get that kind of a tenant back in. Now we have the last tenant who will be there for only on a month-to-month basis, and the bottom line is Mr. Aston is proposing to take our building, which is going to be an empty building with nothing in it, and convert it into something that will be a real asset for the city of Portsmouth. I can assure you, we as a family have sat down with Mr. Aston for hours and gone through it, and we wanted to make sure, as a part of this, that what was being proposed was a first-class building done in a positive way to help the people of Portsmouth. And there is no better way, and what you have to do if you want to support your businesses downtown and otherwise, you have to bring people downtown. This is what this building does. And the people in that building are going to have a gorgeous view of the Elizabeth River. They're going to be looked right over. They are very close to that river. And it is going to be a first-class, upscale apartment complex. And I can assure you, as we talked about parking, there are 400 and some spaces right behind it, as well as spaces on the mart. Aside from all of that, there's no design requirements, period, on this, but nevertheless, Mr. Aston has done everything humanly possible to create everything in a first-class way. Again, on behalf of my family and our family, we ask that you approve this because this is a first-class thing. It will help improve the tax base at least five-fold over what it is today, and it will bring people down who will be able to support the restaurants and the other businesses in downtown Portsmouth. That is what it's all about. All you have to do is look across the river in Norfolk. Look at what they are doing right over at Waterside. They're taking the old Bank of America building, converting it to apartments, and that is what it's all about. Again, thank you very much for your attention, and I respectfully request that you approve as was done. And I would only, again, remind you, Planning Commission unanimously approved this, and it's also fully supported by city staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson.
Seeing no additional speakers, this public hearing is closed.
Mayor Mack?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. First of all, there are a lot of...
We're closed for speakers. Thank you, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
I didn't hear you call for speakers.
He stood.
You didn't call.
He was.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, my name is David Ratcliffe. I live at 422 Crawford Street. I live exactly next to this building. This building is the first building that I had a job in. In 1968, I worked there as Merchants and Farmers Bank. So I'm very familiar with that building inside and out. Someone had shown me these photographs, and I assume that you have photographs of the materials. I'm all for economic development. The point was made earlier about not needing more apartments, and it does seem like we have a rash of apartments being built right now. I hope we're able to fill them up. But I'm concerned about the materials on this building, and I think it's been brought to your attention by professionals. You have images there of what these materials are, and they don't apparently hold up. If you drive around Old Town and you see buildings on High Street, residential and commercial, there's a large use of stone and brick, hardy plank and wood boards and vinyl, composite materials that you can't even pronounce. It's like the ingredients to some of our food. We just don't even know what's in it. it just seems like this building is being jammed onto this space. It's actually going to hang over on the sidewalk. You won't even be able to push a double stroller around the front of this building because it's going to come down flush to the sight line. It's just being forced onto this space, and I would like to see something else there. We don't want an empty building, but I think we can really do better than this and not just rubber stamp this. I'm really disappointed in the Planning Commission not taking a little more work into ensuring that this is going to be a quality thing. I'm just afraid of what it's going to look like in 10 or 15 years. I don't think it's going to hold up, and something that we'll be proud of and want to bring people by to see that building. That's all I have to say, and thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, last call.
Are there any additional speakers? Okay, seeing no additional speakers, this public hearing is closed.
Yeah, Mr. Cherry.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say a couple words because a lot of input on this from citizens. And first of all, I'm going to support this, but I wanted to say why. And I want to disagree with something that was just said. The Planning Commission put an awful lot of time into looking at this, as well as the Planning Department. And I know the Planning Department did because they spent some extra hours with me, one-on-one, trying to make sure that we fully understood and that we were getting a quality product. And this is redevelopment and not development. Some of the things that, when asked to be done, you'd actually have to cut off corners of the building to make it happen. You can't fix the setbacks when the building is already sitting there and there's other buildings and things to the left and to the right and behind it. So some of those things are just not practical to do unless you were going to tear the building down and start over afresh. And as has been stated, this building is not a part of the Old Town Historic District. It's not a part of D1. Had we not changed our zone ordinance, and I do agree with Mr. Page about that form-based code, and I want to tear it up too, which is why we keep making all these changes. But had we not made the change we made last October, we wouldn't even have this discussion. We put the use permit in. This is one of the reasons why. So you probably get to see what's going to happen, get to talk about what's going to happen. We get to do the same. Otherwise, Mr. Aston could have bought the building, did whatever he wanted to do to it, and we would have had very little to say about it. But I can assure you that Mr. Baldwin and his staff and the Planning Commission took Mr. Aston probably through some hoops that he probably don't want to jump through again. But this is going to be, I think, an asset to downtown. And believe me or not, some people, you're questioning the number of apartments. People who build these apartments don't build them without doing some studies to find out if they're going to be able to rent them, because they got to pay the mortgage somehow. And the rent is how they do it. So, Mayor, I'm going to support this for a number of reasons, but a lot of them because I know it went through a very heavily scrutinized, because I sat in on the Planning Commission meeting and their work session, and I sat with Mr. Baldwin, even took up some of the city manager's time to make sure we were getting a quality project here, and that Mr. Aston was doing everything that was required of him. So I'm going to support this, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Well said. Any other questions or comments? All right, yeah, Vice Mayor. And to Mr. Chair's point, I agree with everything you said except form-based code.
We got to get rid of that.
I'm in favor of form-based code, but Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. This has been a tough one for me. I have listened with open ears to my friends and neighbors. Most of you realize I live within a block of this location myself. And most every one of these people who have been up here fussing are friends of mine, as is Mr. Aston, the developer. But that's not what people elected me to do, was to make my friends happy. I have looked at this as Mr. Cherry said, to try to be sure we're treating all of the developers fairly and all the citizens fairly. I voted for this form-based code some years ago, I'd like to tear it up too.
We won an award.
I know we won an award.
We won an award.
Hey, maybe we can do it tonight.
Add it to the agenda.
But we held to the same standard, the Breeden Company project right across the street, which is in the same zoning. We held to the same standard the two other projects that Mr. Aston is building down here. When I think about what this could be, which is A, an empty piece of property, or B, who knows what, you know, I've never been disappointed by what Mr. Aston has built before. When he came to town and said, I'm going to build an apartment building where the Portsmouth General Hospital is, and I'm going to charge people $1,500 a month to live there, we all thought he was a crazy man from Texas, and he probably still is. But he's got a heart for building things of quality, and clearly he must make money doing it, or he wouldn't keep beating his head on the wall and fussing with all of us to do this. So I'm going to support this because I think it's the right thing to do. And I hope he doesn't fail me now. I don't know why he would. You know, there are 553 apartments that will be available for rent before this year is over in the downtown corridor, plus another 46. And I'm very much looking forward to every one of these empty nesters and young people coming so that they need, you know, more shops and more restaurants and more airline tickets. And I will support this.
All right, thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other questions or comments? All right, Madam Clerk.
We're in need of a motion.
Move for adoption.
We have a motion and a second. Please conduct yourselves electronically. This item has been approved 6-0. Unfinished business, 16-160 use permit. Item A, resolution granting the request of Dexter Adams of Flippin' USA LLC for a use permit for a duplex at 1413 Des Moines Avenue. UP 16-03, first reading vote 5-0 approved. Vision Principles, Sustainable Neighborhoods, electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers.
We need a motion. Ms. Meeks. We'll approve this. Yep.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please conduct yourselves electronically. This item has been adopted 6-0. City Manager's Report, 16-183. Adoption of an ordinance to transfer $326,000 within the FY 2015-16 General Fund operating budget for the purpose of funding state-mandated Children's Services Act services for at-risk youth and their families. Vision Principle, Efficient Service Delivery, electronic roll call, and I have registered speakers. Our speaker is Ms. Donna Sy.
Good evening. My name is Donna Sy, and I live in Woodbine Farms neighborhood. 16-183, adoption of an ordinance to transfer $326,000 to fund state-mandated Children's Services Act services for at-risk youth and their families. What about the at-risk department in the school? Were they at the table on this request? The state funds provided to our school for the year 2015-16 for at-risk youth is $2,764,269. Yet, we are going to transfer another $326,000 for services for at-risk youth and their families when we could use part of the school's money to implement the Whole Schools Change program. How come this information wasn't brought out at the work session to let the people know what land sale and what vacancies were providing the $326,000? The lack of communication is rampant in this city, and we the people are the government, and yet the secrecy is unbearable.
We have no additional speakers on this item.
Move for adoption.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please conduct yourselves electronically. This item has been adopted 6-0. 16-184, adoption of an ordinance to transfer $173,000 within the FY 2015-16 General Fund operating budget for the purpose of funding secure detention placement services utilized by the Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court. Vision Principle, Efficient Service Delivery, Electronic Roll Call, and I have a speaker, Ms. Donna Sy.
I'm Donna Sy, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. 16-184, an ordinance to transfer $173,000 to fund secure detention placement services utilized by the Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court. Due to an increase in serious crimes, there has been an increase in the court utilizing secure detention placements. The funding was budgeted at an average rate of 12 youths per day to approximately 15 to 16 per day, resulting in a shortfall. The funds will come from vacancies, saving to cover the cost. What vacancies are covering the cost? Why wasn't this reported at a work session? When are the people going to be consulted for our input? We have a Tidewater Commission on Youth. How come they haven't kept the City Council abreast of the work they are doing with youth in detention? Where is our detention center? If we could focus on prevention, that would be a capital investment. It will create a dramatic drop in the use of detention centers and spending of taxpayers' dollars. Thanks for listening.
There are no additional speakers on this item.
Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Please conduct yourselves electronically. This item has been adopted 6-0. 16-185, adoption of a resolution granting approval for American Medical Response Mid-Atlantic, Inc. to provide certain transport services within the city of Portsmouth. Vision Principle, Efficient Service Delivery, Electronic Roll Call, and I have no registered speakers.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please conduct yourselves electronically. You all need to vote again.
Do we
Thank you.
reset?
Yeah.
Okay.
This item has been adopted 6-0. New business, 16-186, boards and commissions. Councilman Edmonds.
Thank you. Mayor and members of council, I offer for your consideration and move the adoption of the following reappointments and appointments to boards and commissions. Appointments: Behavior Health Care Service Advisory Board, Dr. Marie Shepard and Antoinette Franklin. Community Policy and Management Team, Tidewater Youth Services Commission, Ginger Poger. Parks and Recreation Committee, Jamal Ross. Social Services Advisory Board, Robert Jones. Reappointment: Community Criminal Justice Board, Judge Joel Crow, David Simons. Cultural Alliance of Greater Hampton Roads, Councilman Curtis Edmonds. History Commission, Maureen Mazzell, John Robbins Jr. Social Services Advisory Commission, Patrice Ward. Wetlands Board, Lena Simmons, Herman Weaver. Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please conduct yourselves electronically. These appointments have been adopted by a vote of 6-0. 16-187, items submitted by council members. Adoption of a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with the Southeastern Public Service Authority for the use and support of a regional solid waste disposal system, conditioned upon SIPSA and the city entering into a collaborative development agreement with regard to the development of a new Portsmouth transfer station, and subject to a sufficient number of member localities entering into an identical use and support agreement to effect the selected waste disposal method at an initial tipping fee cost of less than $65 per ton for the disposal of municipal solid waste, deferred from the May 10th, 2016 City Council meeting. Electronic roll call, and I have registered speakers. Our first speaker is Donald Sy.
Let me defer to our Vice Mayor, and maybe we can defer this whole matter for another date.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Vice Mayor.
I'd like to move to defer this item to the June 28th council meeting.
We have a motion and a second to defer to the June 28th City Council meeting. Please conduct yourselves electronically.
Thank you.
This item has been adopted by a vote of 6-0. Will you not be hearing speakers
Thank you.
tonight?
No, we will not hear speakers tonight, and we'll do it on the deferral. Thank you. Right.
I'm sorry.
Deferred. All right.
Okay, the item was deferred to the
Deferred, not adopted.
to the meeting of
All right.
June 28th.
Great job, Madam
Okay.
Clerk. Thank you.
16-188, report on pending items, and we
Hold
have
on,
none.
before we go to that item, let me, I want to just take a brief moment to congratulate all of our high school students, our graduates that graduated last week. We had a total in Portsmouth Public Schools, high schools, 935 total graduates. 315 of that 935 graduated with honors. 205 of that 935 graduated from the first college program with college credits. And of those 935 high school graduates, $18.5 million in scholarship were offered to those kids. I think our school board, our teachers, our administrators, and more importantly, our kids and our parents deserve a round of applause, of congratulations. I attended a scholarship function Saturday that was presented by the Kappas at Bishop Edmonds Place, and I hope you didn't mind my inference. We had a keynote speaker that was a media personality, and I had a chance to speak before that person, and I shared my displeasure with the fact that all of this good news is going on at this time of the year with our young people. And when you sit in those seats and listen to these young kids speak, and each high school had their valedictorian and in some cases a salutatorian that came up and speak, and you can pick up a common theme that these kids are very concerned and upset that we are painting all of them with a broad brush because of a few that do mean and bad things. And that's very unfortunate, because 95% of our kids are doing a great job. And why we, the media, and all others don't recognize that and give them those accolades is really disturbing. I also shared that I went to Virginia Beach Convention Center last week with the 200-plus men, and they recognized in Hampton Roads almost 700 African-American males that are graduating from high school this year in Hampton Roads with a 3.0 grade point average or better. And I'm sitting in there with Congressman Bobby Scott and the new mayor of Norfolk, and I asked them both, you notice what's missing in this room? There wasn't a camera, there wasn't a reporter, there wasn't a soul in there to talk or share that good news. And that is very unfortunate in our society. As these young kids make their mark and go off into whatever pathway they choose, whether it's military or college, shipyard or apprenticeships. We should be encouraging them, and we should be very mindful of that as we continue to again, cast all of them in this net. And I want to applaud Dr. Whitaker. His daughter was, your daughter was the salutatorian at IC Norcom.
Thank you, Mayor.
And she was one of those kids, and all of them, and the young lady from Wilson, I think, Cindy Dixon, she graduated. I think her and the young lady that was the valedictorian of Churchland High School was the highest scholar in Hampton Roads. The two top scholars were right here from Portsmouth. And the young lady from Wilson, Miss Dixon, encouraged her classmates to continue proving them wrong and make them put some respect on our name. And that message was loud and clear, and I went up to that young lady after the ceremony and thanked her and wished her well. She's got a full ride to George Mason, but we want to congratulate all of our kids and all of the great news that is going on with these young people, and be mindful of how we cast and put all of them in the same box. And we do that in society with a lot of things when just a few people are doing things that are not right. So thank you for that. Are there any other comments or items submitted by opponent? Yeah. All right, Vice Mayor.
You know I do. I can't let this pass. Reminder again, tomorrow, Wednesday at 12 noon at High Street Landing at the foot of High Street, we have the Portsmouth Stand with Orlando Vigil, hence the black ribbons. We'll just have a quick solemn ceremony at the foot of High Street honoring the 49 who were tragically killed in Orlando this weekend. On Thursday, we have the beginnings of the June Thursdays, Sunset Thursdays at Portside from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. Island Boy is this Thursday, and next Thursday is Soul Intent, who are always a crowd pleaser. On Friday, the 17th at 10 a.m., we have another one of the squares on High Street, the historic squares. The Historic Initiative at 10 a.m. We'll have one on the northwest cornerstone at the Portsmouth Museums, and at 11:30 we'll have the one at the Sports Hall of Fame at High and Middle Street. And if that hasn't worn you out enough, this weekend, the 17th and 18th, is the Race to Cock Island, which used to be sort of a private sailboat event and is still a sailing race. But all the entertainment at Portside is free. You do not have to be a participant in the race to enjoy the DeLoreans on Friday night. And on Saturday, the public party runs from 5 to 11 p.m. And I'm sorry, I can't tell you who that band is. But Race to Cock Island, you'll enjoy watching the actual sailboats out on the river beginning about 9:30 Saturday morning. It's beautiful to watch. So hope the weather will stay nice for all those events.
Okay, very good. Mr. Cherry? Okay, Dr. Patton.
Mayor, I was just going to add to the just outstanding news that you reported regarding Portsmouth Public School students, but I would like for everyone to know that IC Norcom High School has a student that's going to the Naval Academy. There were 16,000 applicants, and she was chosen, and she had an officer. She.
And I wrote her a letter.
Underscore. She was presented with the scholarship that totals almost $750-something thousand for the total 4 years by one of the officers that came down from the academy. Secondly, for I think this is IC Norcom's 4th Gates Millennium Scholar. We have a Gates Millennium Scholar that graduated in the class of 2016. I think that's outstanding.
Absolutely, that's right. And for those of you that are not familiar with the Gates Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates started that, and when you qualify for one of those scholarships, they will all the way through to PhD. They will see it through, and that is great news. And I believe this may be the last year for the Millennium Scholarship. They set a certain time to do that, and I think this year or maybe next year may be the last. One of the judges or board of directors is a professor over at Norfolk State, and he and I was chatting about that just last week. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. Madam, well, business related. On our first item tonight, with change to the code at 1320 London Boulevard.
Yes.
It talked about proffers and the block not being checked. I don't think there were any proffers, but I think we probably need to have Mr. Baldwin and the city, not tonight, but and the city attorney give us a briefing on proffers. There have been some significant changes made in proffers at the state level, and that severely would change the way we've been doing business with proffers. And a lot of it was aimed, I think it was aimed at those people in Northern Virginia who were getting money for their proffers. Ours weren't money related, but it was all lumped into one. So as we go forth, we probably need to be educated. I got educated on it sitting in the planning commission meeting and listening to Mr. Baldwin and the staff, but Mr. Baldwin, you want to comment in?
I'll just make one comment on our D2 form-based code. As I went through my presentation, I was noting that it's a street designation, not parcel designated. Proffers are parcel specific. There's no specific rezoning on the parcel, therefore proffers are not used in the D2 form-based code.
Okay. But on our future developments, we need to know about this,
Yes.
change in the state law, and et cetera.
Yes, and I have had a conversation with Dr. Patton. I believe she's scheduling that for a work session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good idea. Very good. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Madam Clerk? Oh, and I thought I saw that was Kappa. The Kappas from Portsmouth, Suffolk chapter had that scholarship banking. And I want to thank Mr. I believe his name was Al Wiggins, who was the chairman of that, and he's been chairing that. I want to make sure I gave the right fraternity their due. All right, Madam Clerk.
16-188, report on pending items. And we have none this evening.
No items. Okay, thank you.
16-189, non-agenda speakers. Our first speaker is Mr. Vernon Elliott.
Greetings, City Council and City Manager and others. Yesterday, before I had been here and I had talked on something that I thought would be helpful, and going along, I talked about civility. And since then, we have given attention to different agendas and so forth. And I thought this time I would mention something else. Is a word that would be inspirational for tonight. The mayor was just speaking about respect, you know. Did I mention my address tonight?
You're fine.
Okay. And going around, I think that we need to have a little more respect in our dealings and so forth, as we have been doing so well. However, that we have rules and regulations and laws in place, but sometimes there's just we could use just a tad more bit of respect, in our dealings to help us to move along a little better. And it seems as we can go through our day, we can do what we can to improve our lives and have respect for ourselves and each other, and humane ways we can get things done in our environment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Elliott. Good night.
Our next speaker is Ms. Ursula Murphy.
Who was that? Was that Aretha Franklin? RESPECT?
Don't start singing now.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. Last City Council meeting, I came up here and shared some concerns regarding a fellow City Council member. And tonight, I've done a little bit more that I would very much like to have some answers to. As we know, the Virginian pilot does a great job of reporting things. So everything that I'm going to reference tonight has been reported in the Virginian pilot. On August of 2013, the city agreed to have RDS do the recycling for the city, and that was rolled out. At that time, Mr. Moody, or shortly thereafter, he obtained an opinion by the Commonwealth Attorney, Mr. Mobley, stating that his employment with RDS at that time was not a conflict. Fast forward to April of 2015, the City Council let our former city manager go. In July of 2013, you let our department head, Mr. Bagley, go for purchasing mulch equipment and other equipment for the Craney Island landfill. At that time, the pilot also reported that 2 other staff members went to Germany to view that equipment. In July of 2013, Mr. Bagley claimed that Mr. Rowe had authorized the purchase of that equipment and that RDS at that time was already grinding bulk materials at our landfill. We've also had several other members of city employment leave that were directly related to the landfill and to the recycling project. In December of 2015, Councilman Moody stated that he thought that the auditor should be terminated. At that time, the pilot reported that the auditor was focusing on the Antelos Wireless Pavilion, the waste management, and the 8 meetings related to waste management had been scheduled from July to December. At the last council meeting, Mr. Moody admitted that he had gone back to work for RDS. As a citizen, I would like to know when his original employment with RDS had been terminated, when he went back to work for RDS, and what all of that played into the waste management report not being presented to the citizens of Portsmouth. We paid for that. We should have been entitled to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Our next speaker is Mr. Randy Bailey.
Well, I would like to start out with saying that the city lost a great individual in Charles Whitehurst, and it was a great loss for everybody. He was a good man, and it's a shame to see him go. And if we were going to make commercials about the city, he was probably somebody that we should have put in a commercial, along with Mayor Hawley. Now, I don't want you to have a heart attack, but I'm going to agree with you on your assessment of commercials. They were not right. They did not portray the city. Because when I looked at them after you made your comments in the paper, Mr. Whitaker, I have to agree that they did not portray the city as it should be. So your assessment is correct, because when I looked at them, I didn't see any for sale signs, condemned signs, any dilapidated properties. I did not see any children hanging out on the corners. I didn't see any dope dealers or hookers. I didn't see any kids with pistols shooting each other. Didn't see any dropouts. I didn't see any tunnel tolls. I didn't see any mention of the heroin hotel at the corner of Broad and London Blvd. I didn't see any truckers frequenting the place. I didn't see any high crime or anything else in the commercials. So you were right about that. They didn't accurately portray the city, so they should probably be redone. Other than that, if they were, as they were supposed to be, targeted commercialization, which is basically pull the suckers in and get them to come to the city, which is what the idea is, they were very good commercials, because they're going to draw in what they were looking for, the people on the outside, and pull them in and get them to come here and spend some money. I think that was the idea behind them. Not to portray the city, but like I say, hook the suckers and bring them in and get them to spend some money. I think that was the idea behind it. You all have a nice night.
Good night, Mr. Bailey.
Mr. Bill?
Yes.
Yeah, you said you agree with me. I agree with you. Sound like your vision is poor.
Well, I do have poor eyesight, but I'm still an excellent pistol shot.
Good night, Mr. Bailey.
Our last speaker is Mr. Garland Alexander.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council members. My name's Garland Alexander. Let me get my glasses out. I'm here tonight to speak about the last council meeting, May 24th. I spoke about the retired city employees of 1,132. To be exact, tonight I'm speaking on behalf of myself only. Mayor Wright, you said I don't have the right to speak for 400 retired members. I wasn't speaking for 400. I was speaking for all the retirees, retired city employees. You were rude and disrespectful. You were, to me, and let me, I can't even read my own right, to me and lectured me as if I was a 15-year-old. I'm 71 years old, and I don't need to be lectured. At the beginning of each meeting, Ms. White reads a statement about how speakers are supposed to treat you and the council members. I expect the same from you. A lot of retirees are afraid of what you can do as mayor concerning the Social Security offset. That is why they won't speak at council or about pay or anything else. I have actually defended you on this and said that you would not change it back. City employees, don't forget, Mayor Wright, these old retired city employees who pay taxes and vote are the people you work for and not the other way around. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
There are no additional speakers this evening.
Okay. Let me just state, since Mr. Alexander talked about the retirees and the Social Security offset, I want you to know, sir, and all of our other seniors, that I, about 10 years ago, was asked by this city council to come serve on a blue ribbon committee with a bunch of other private business owners to tackle an issue that this council did not want to tackle. And 10 years ago, before I even came on this council, we made some suggestions back to this council of the best way forward to make that matter go away. And no action was taken on that. I had no idea at that time that I would wind up being the mayor to make that possible. So they're correct, and I appreciate you for defending me, because I won't change that. And there were a lot of matters involved in that issue. And we went out and spent, I think it was $25 million. $25 million is what we borrowed to make that matter go away, and we did it 4 years ago. This council right here, 10 years ago, I was asked as an owner of a private business that had no interest in this to come in to give a fresh set of eyes with about, I think that blue ribbon committee consists of about 10 business owners. Okay? And this was something that happened in 1984. And we tried to give a very balanced view and listening to retirees as well as the city and we made recommendations, and I'm proud that I did that, and I'm proud that we did what we did. And that's why I said what I said to you at the last meeting, sir. That was not disrespectful. I take pride in what I do. I take pride when the city called me as a citizen and asked me my opinion with other business people. Because sometimes we get politics too caught up and we go too far one way or the other because we're trying to prove a point. And I had great reservations as to why the city would call my office and ask me to come over and serve. And when I got here and found the other people, none of us were political, and we all saw the mess that the city was in, and we took it as an honor that the city would ask us to do that. And so I still today take that as an honor. And that was a tough pill for this city to swallow, to spend $25 million on 400 people. That's a lot of money, sir. But in my view, and in this council's view, it was the right thing to do, and we did that. That's right. And so, again, I was not being disrespectful. With that, we're adjourned.